Once again, Christian greetings to all our valued listeners and viewers throughout the whole world, even more particularly to all Shepherd's Rod believers, and most especially to our beloved brothers and sisters in the United States of America. Special greetings to our brethren in Colorado, to our brethren in Georgia, to our brethren in Kansas, in Texas, in Missouri, in Chicago, Illinois, in Fiji Island, Mexico, Spain, in Africa, Kenya, Zambia, Pakistan, to the United Kingdom, also to our brethren in Australia, and to the rest of the 144,000 living saints scattered abroad. Greetings. May the good Lord bless you, brothers and sisters. At this time, we will be studying concerning the subject, the day of slaughter. And this is our special episode number 1. Now, as far as the Shepherd's Rod is thus concerned, according to 3 Symbolic Code number 1, page 8, 3 Symbolic Code number 1, page 8, therefore, as there are 2 separations, there is a double fulfillment of Ezekiel's slaughter. One in the church before the close of provision, and the other in the worldly churches after the close of provision. So, there is only 2 slaughtering as explained by the Shepherd's Rod. The first slaughtering is before the close of provision, and the second slaughtering is after the close of provision. That statement, after the close of provision, cannot be construed as after the general close of provision. Because after the general close of provision, the judgment that will fall upon Babylon is not slaughtering. We know that it is the 7 last plagues. So, the close of provision mentioned in that reading must be the general close of provision for all Sabbath keepers. So, on the first slaughtering, according to the Shepherd's Rod, only the firstborn sons are in danger. So, it says here in 1SR Pocket Edition, page 55 and page 56, when will this come to pass? The type unquestionably reveals the time through the fact that only the firstborn were then in danger. Accordingly, the antitypical Passover will take place in the time of the first fruit harvest, the sealing of the 144,000, the first fruits, the first to go to antitypical Jerusalem, the first to stand on Mount Zion with the Lamb, the firstborn by the Spirit. Obviously, all of the first fruits who receive the mark will live on, and all who fail to receive the mark will perish as surely as did the firstborn, who at the time of the typical Passover failed to apply the blood on the doorpost. 1SR Pocket Edition, pages 55 and page 56. I will try my best that we could shorten the study. So, the second slaughtering is the general destruction of all the wicked Sabbath keepers, those who fail to obtain the seal of the living God. And it is called the general destruction of all the wicked Sabbath keepers, no longer just pertaining only to the firstborn sons. But another significance is that the first slaughtering being typifying the slaughtering that occurs in Egypt, that first slaughtering will occur only in the antitypical Egypt. And I will no longer elaborate that portion, but just to say that the antitypical Egypt is the United States of America. So the first slaughtering will take place only within the dominion of the 50 states in the United States of America. The first slaughtering would be only on the symbolical earth, but the last slaughtering is worldwide. throughout the whole world. All the Sabbath keepers throughout the whole world who failed to obtain the seal of the living God in their foreheads. Now, there is one thing that I would like to honestly confess. 100% without any doubt, there must be slaughtering on September 22, 2022. And I will honestly confess and already covenanted to the Lord that if there would be no slaughtering on September 22, 2022, I will be the one to confess and to admit that the messages that I did proclaim did not come from God. Maybe I would like to say that all of us, the constituent of this movement, the Laymans movement, will be at that time, if there will be no slaughtering, then we will honestly confess, brothers and sisters, that we had misinterpreted, we have misapplied the Word of God. But as far as the messages recorded in the Shepherd's Rod is thus concerned, we would like to say that 100% there is slaughtering, or there would be slaughtering on September 22, 2022. The only thing by which we are not as certain as it should be at this present time, if this slaughtering is the first or the last. But 100% there would be slaughtering on September 22, 2022. And I would like to repeat again, the only thing by which we are not as certain as it should be at this present time, if this slaughtering is the first, the slaughtering by which only the firstborn sons are endangered, the slaughtering which takes place before the close of provision, or is it the last slaughtering? Now at this time, brothers and sisters, I would like to read that statement on answerer number 5. To all who are seriously, I would like to use the term, listening to this message, that the admonition here in answerer number 5, page 29, saying, and now the only safe and sane procedure is to read closely every page of the solemn message contained in the Shepherd's Rod publications. Let not a line escape your attention. Study every word carefully and prayerfully. Be earnest and diligent in your perusal of truth, and prove all things. Hold fast that which is good. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 21. Now, brothers and sisters, as far as the Shepherd's Rod is thus concerned, the great and dreadful day of the Lord, I would like to read this reading. In 1 TG number 32, on page 21, it says, doubtless the day of slaughter is the great and dreadful day of the Lord. 1 TG 32, page 21. So without any doubt, the day of slaughter is the great and dreadful day of the Lord. Now, according to answerer number 3, page 41, it says, let us remember always to observe the inviolable rule that an interpretation of one inspired statement must harmonize with all other related statements. And that's why the admonition given in the old symbolic code, 3 symbolic code, number 1, page 9. A conclusion which is based upon a single citation, do the passage be ever so plain, but which conclusion cannot be harmonized with every other authoritative statement on the same subject, is not a safe and honest rule of interpretation. Now let us connect track number 15. Here in track number 15 on page 57, it says here, track number 15. Moreover, as the first phase of the judgment passes with the 6th chapter of the Revelation, the second phase begins with the 7th chapter. That is, it begins with the sealing of the living saints, the first fruits. It is the great day for the righteous. We are talking about the great and dreadful day of the Lord. I think the day of slaughtering is not a great day for the righteous. Or it is not appropriate to say that the day of slaughter, is the great day for the righteous. And secondly, there is no such statement in the shepherd's rod that the slaughtering is the great day for the righteous, because the 144,000, they will be like as God, and God, destruction is not pleasing to Him. It is called by the Bible as for prophecy as strange work. And that is why the statement in, I would like to read 1 TG, I think 29, it says here on page 9, I would like to read the statement. 1 TG 29, page 9. God in His wisdom knows that it is better to destroy comparatively few enemies of truth than to lose the whole world. All the stumbling blocks must be removed. But I'm looking to that statement saying, although loath to punish, meaning it is not a great day for God to destroy, because the desire of God is to save, not to destroy. But the time will come that the necessity for such destruction must be implemented. And the reason is that because it says in 1 TG 29, page 9. I know that there's statements saying that God, although God loath to punish, L-O-A-T-H, loath to punish. God in His wisdom knows that it is better to destroy comparatively few enemies of truth than to lose the whole world. So, the time came that it is in a great necessity that God will destroy comparatively few enemies of truth than to lose the whole world. And all the stumbling blocks, accordingly, must be removed. Now, I would like to go back again. You have found that statement? I think that's in timely greetings. Although God loath to punish. L-O-A-T-H. Find the word loath. Now, it says here, so it is the sealing of the living saints, the first fruits. So to the 144,000 living saints, that predicted event, the sealing of the living saints, is the great day for the righteous. Although it is not dreadful to the wicked. But in the upper portion, I would like to read this reading. It says, still in track 15, page 57, that there should be a climax of some kind in the judicial work at this particular point of the scriptures. Revelation 6, verse 14 to 17 is not a mystery. It's being stamped with the events which end the reign of sin, and this being realized by even the sinners themselves is a very good indication that during the sixth seal, the judgment of the dead closes and the preparations for the judgment of the living begin. It is the dreadful day for the wicked. So let us distinctly separate the great day and the dreadful day. The great day is the sealing of the 144,000. But the dreadful day, that is the time when the sealing of the 144,000 is completely ended, and those who failed to obtain the seal of the living God, it is a dreadful day to all of them at that time, brothers and sisters. Now, I would like to read 1 TG number 5 on page 10. So let's read the statement given by the voice of inspiration in timely greetings. To all who are unprepared for that great and dreadful day of the Lord. So that is the statement given by, I think that is found on verse 10. Isaiah chapter 3, verse 10. Isaiah chapter 2, verse 10. Isaiah chapter 2, verse 10. It says, enter into the rock and hide thee in the dust for fear of the Lord and for the glory of His majesty. And this is the commentary given by the shepherd's rod. Here we are plainly told that the sinners will eventually find themselves unprepared for the great and dreadful day of the Lord. And when God does manifest His power, they will indeed be terrified. And I would like to read this reading in 1 TG number 5. Who are they? On page 12. Who are they? That the very first one, to cry unto the rocks, unto the mountains. 1 TG number 5, page 12. The sinners in Zion are first to cry to the rocks and to the mountains. The sinners in Zion are the first to cry to the rocks and to the mountains. Then will go forth far and wide the proclamation of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. Hear ye that are far off what I have done, and ye that are near acknowledge my might. Isaiah 33 verse 13. Now, brothers and sisters, the term Zion cannot be applied to the world. Zion, Israel, Jerusalem, it is applied only to the church, and it can never be applied to the world. I would like to read this reading in 1 TG number 3, page 12. It says, even an altogether uninformed Christian knows that the terms Jerusalem, Judah, and Israel mean the church, never even as much as imply the world. They have always meant the church and always will mean the church, for that is what they are. So the voice of inspiration is plainly telling that the very first to cry unto the rocks and unto the mountains are the sinners in Zion. Why? Because they are unprepared of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. What is the great and dreadful day of the Lord, brothers and sisters? It is pointing, the great day is pointing to the sealing of the 144,000. And the dreadful day is pointing to the day of slaughter. Concerning the great and dreadful day of the Lord, the shepherd's rod made it so plain. I would like to read the General Conference Special, page 19. It says, General Conference Special. To re-emphasize the fact, let it be said again that being the last of the prophets, Elijah is therefore the only one who can open to our understanding all the prophecies of the scriptures pertaining to the great and dreadful day of the Lord. Prophecies which heretofore had been only mysteries to all. Thus he is, as the scriptures say, to blow the trumpet in Zion and to sound an alarm in God's holy mountain. In the church, General Conference Special, page 19. Now, that statement is very plain. It is not difficult to understand. There is no other prophet that can explain the great and dreadful day of the Lord except Elijah. Brothers and sisters, except antitypical Elijah. But we as shepherds and believers, brethren, it is high time now to realize that there are two typical Elijahs. Therefore, there must also be two antitypical Elijah. Elijah John the Baptist and Elijah the Tishbite. I would no longer elaborate, brethren, but the absolute fact is that Hotep never claimed that he was antitypical Elijah the Tishbite. But he did claim that he was antitypical Elijah John the Baptist. He himself declared in 1 TG. 1 TG number 33 and number 34. Let me read to you. 36 rather. Number 36 on page 4. True, verse 3 found fulfillment in the work of John the Baptist. But the verses preceding and also the verses following definitely apply to the people in the latter days and only partially to the people in John's day. Therefore, the truth stands out boldly that the direct fulfillment of this chapter is found in our time. Thus making John's work an example of our work, John's work the type, ours the antitype. So the prophet himself, Hotep, boldly claimed that he was antitypical Elijah John the Baptist. And here in the General Conference Special, on page 23, General Conference Special, page 23, and it says, and, General Conference Special, page 23, and if any should tell you that a former prophet has fulfilled the promise, although the prophet himself has not said so, so the former prophet mentioned here must be a male prophet because it is masculine in gender himself. I would like to prove to you that statement in track number 5. Track number 5 on page
59. Moreover, the star is personified as him, masculine in gender, thus being limited to a male person. So if the gender use is masculine, the application must be limited only to a male person. And it cannot be applied to Ellen G. White because the gender use here is masculine. B.T. Hotep is very accurate because when B.T. Hotep applied it to Sister White, B.T. Hotep used the gender of feminine. In page 39, it says, General Conference Special, page 39. For anyone to lay such charges to her or to imagine that her prophetic office fulfilled anything more than a preparatory part of the mission of Elijah. So this statement is applied to Ellen G. White because the gender use is feminine. But General Conference Special, page 23, the gender use is masculine, can only be applied to B.T. Hotep, the former prophet. Now let us read again the statement in General Conference Special, page 23. And if any should tell you that a former prophet has fulfilled the promise concerning antitypical Elijah the Tishbite, although the prophet himself has not said so, B.T. Hotep has not said so, that he was antitypical Elijah the Tishbite, then not to know for a certainty that such are not working for the God of Elijah, but for the devil, is Laodiceanism of the worst kind. So, that is Laodiceanism of the worst kind. Those Davidian by which they say that antitypical Elijah the Tishbite is B.T. Hotep, while B.T. Hotep himself has not said so, that is Laodiceanism for the worst kind. And they were working for the devil and not for the God of Elijah. Now, brothers and sisters, let us now focus to our subject, the great and dreadful day of the Lord. And I would like to read first this reading on General Conference Special, page 7 and page 8. It says here, this will be the devil's deal. While the day of God is approaching, and while Elijah is making the announcement of it as the scroll unrolls, and while the prophecies concerning the day of God are being unsealed, his work and his interpretation of the prophecies for the great day will identify him as the promised Elijah the prophet. Testimonies to Ministers, page 475. And this will enrage the devil as never before. Nevertheless, one's only safety will be in the teaching of Elijah, for there will be no other voice of timely truth and authority to whom one may turn. Any others will lead their victims blindfolded into perdition. Now, brothers and sisters, the shepherd's rod made it so plain that there is no other voice that you can safely follow except the voice of Elijah. Any others will lead their victims blindfolded into perdition. Do you believe that statement 100%? Now, since there are only two identity as the typical Elijah, Tishbite and John the Baptist, then there must only be two antitypical Elijahs. So in this study, brethren, the types are worked out to expose the error. Remember, brethren, the statement in 2SR 255, it says, as there is no type for that which is false, teachers of juries without a typical representation for their claims of so-called Bible truths, and those who believe in them are as the blind leading the blind. The types are worked out to expose the error and reveal the truth. The honest ones will shun the devil by embracing the facts and by walking in the light. The types is one of the most powerful medium given by God to His people to defeat the enemy. As a matter of fact, in 1SR Packet Edition, the Shepherd's Rod says that true types completely disarm the enemy of souls. 1 SR Packet Edition, page 73. So completely disarming the enemy of souls. The great designer of these typological truths leaves the reader free to make his own choice as to whether he will continue in the darkness or come out into the light of the Lord, no longer to wonder what church to join or what is truth and what is error. Now, as far as the Shepherd's Rod publications is thus concerned, there are only two prophets predicted after Ellen G. White, and that is antitypical Elijah John the Baptist and antitypical Elijah the Tishbite. Those Davidian movements that recognizes inspired servant more than one after B.T. Hotep died cannot be of God because there is no type. As there is no type for that which is false. There is no type. Brothers and sisters, for example, John the Baptist. Brothers and sisters, let us focus to John the Baptist. And that is why it is really reverse order, brothers and sisters, because the order in the type, first Elijah the Tishbite, then John the Baptist. This is the type. Why is it that it must be reverse order? Because if it will not reverse, then when God will send Elijah the Tishbite, antitypical Elijah the Tishbite, by which the type, the Elijah the Tishbite never tastes death, therefore the antitype will also never taste death. Then there is no more chance to send antitypical Elijah John the Baptist because Elijah the Tishbite will no longer taste death. So it is reverse order. Now, brothers and sisters, John the Baptist, the movement of John the Baptist is only an association. The movement of B.T. Hotep is only an association. It is not a church. Type and antitype perfectly match. But brothers and sisters, the one who followed after John the Baptist is Jesus Christ. At that time, Jesus Christ is a prophet. And then after Jesus Christ, the 120 disciples. This is the type. Therefore, the antitype must be B.T. Hotep, and then antitypical Elijah the Tishbite, and then the 144,000 living saints. It's easy to understand through the type. So, through the typical representation, brethren, those who wish to come out in the darkness, you can immediately come out, brothers and sisters, that any Davidian movement by which they recognizes more than one inspired servant after B.T. Hotep died cannot be of God. And secondly, the last prophet that had been predicted beforehand will no longer to taste death. That is the absolute sign given by God to His people in the last days. Now, I would like to read the General Conference Special. General Conference Special on page 9. It says, General Conference Special, page 9. Likewise, irrespective of consideration of personal faults, frailties, and failings, Elijah's message and movement will be the only God-sent ones. Brothers and sisters, there is no other divinely called movement ever recorded in the Shepherd's Rod publication, Elijah's movement. And there are two Elijah. The movement of antitypical Elijah John the Baptist, it is an association, but the movement of antitypical Elijah the Tishbite, it is a church. And here, brothers and sisters, I would like to read to you. Unless you can read other statement that can negate the statement here in the General Conference Special, page 9. It says here, likewise, irrespective of considerations of personal faults, frailties, and failings, Elijah's message and movement will be the only God-sent ones, the only ones to fear, the only ones to love, to stand by, to live or to die for. No, there will be no other shield when heaven opens and the storm breaks in all its dread fury upon the world to unavoidably pour down its lethal lightning from the skies. The General Conference is Special, page 9. Now, I would like to read this statement in the General Conference is Special, page 35. The General Conference is Special on page 35. So let us read, and let me see if I could find that statement that it is pointing to the Shepherd's Rod publications, the message of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. Page 36, 35 and 36. I would like to read. Your conference is special. It says, page 35. Thus you have it from the Lord through his prophet Nahum, that the one who announces that the time has come for the wicked to be cut off from among God's people, and that the judgment for the living, which as we have already seen, is the great and dreadful day of the Lord, is about to take place, is to make the announcement of these events by his publications. Whose publications? I would like to read on the, it says, what is the Lord's counsel concerning the boys of Elijah's publications? And what is the title of them? The answer comes from Micah the prophet. The Lord's voice crieth unto the city, and the man of wisdom shall see thy name. Hear ye the rod, and who had appointed it? Micah 6:9. Here is a rod which speaks, and its voice, the scripture points out, is the voice of God to his people. And since the shepherd's rod, the publications which contain the message of the great and dreadful day of the Lord is the only rod that has ever spoken, then it is the rod publications which the Lord demands all to hear. The General Conference is special, page 35 and page 36. So this is the second, another fruit, brothers and sisters, that there is no such a statement in the Shepherd's Rod, that after the Shepherd's Rod publications have been completely published, there is still another publications, there is still another inspired writings as the basis of the message, great and dreadful day of the Lord. So those Davidian movements by which after Beti-Hotep died, there are messengers by which they recognizes that they have their own writings other than the Shepherd's Rod publications. Well, that is their own prerogative to believe it. But for me, it cannot be proven with the Shepherd's Rod publications. Now, I would like to read these publications that produced by the Bayesian movement, and hoping that since they are the very one who published this reading material, brothers and sisters, hoping that they will be the one to believe it. Although, I will honestly declare that I will not say that these reading materials were not written by Beti-Hotep. And I will not say that these reading materials were written by Beti-Hotep. But even in the days of Beti-Hotep, for example, Uriah Smith, Beti-Hotep quoted some portion in the writings of Uriah Smith, by which Beti-Hotep says that this portion is in harmony with the writings of Sister White. Now, brothers and sisters, the Bayesian advocators, they claim that they are the one who compiled all the reading materials of Beti-Hotep. And since they are the very ones who published this reading material, track number 16, by which this reading material, the only movement that has this reading material is the Bayesian movement. Now, I would like to read track number 16, and hoping that they will be the first one to believe what had been written in this reading material. In page 48, it says, Prophecy and Fulfillment. So the title, it says, Prophecy and Fulfillment. So what is the difference between prophecy and fulfillment? Now, I would like to read on page 49. It says, hoping that, thus at the outset of the redemptive work of the Holy Spirit, as the Spirit of prophecy, He made manifest heaven's procedure in the unfolding of the plan of salvation, which, as we shall see as we progress, had been carried out right up to the present. Now, let us apply now the term present, this present year, 2021. Let us continue reading. It says, in these two manifestations of the Spirit of prophecy, two manifestations of the Spirit of prophecy. In these two manifestations of the Spirit of prophecy, we see not only heaven's method of unfolding the plan of salvation, but also the people's response, which assume a pattern of unbelief and rebellion, not so much against the prophecy of the event as against the fulfillment of it. Now, what does it mean by the prophecy of the event and the prophecy of the fulfillment of the event. Now let us continue reading. It says, Abraham, through whom the Spirit of truth next manifested himself as the Spirit of prophecy, predicted, then acted upon his own prediction, that he and his seed were to be sojourners in a strange land for a period of 430 years, after which they were to inherit the promised land. He and Lot and their families, together with all their servants, left their father's house in Haran. And in so far as we know, there was no opposition of any kind from any of them. Now look at the statement. And in so far as we know, there was no opposition of any kind from any of them. But it must be remembered that Abraham's announcement of the promise was the prediction, not the fulfillment of it. So what is the promise? What is the message given by God to Abraham? The prediction, not the fulfillment of it. When God's people went out of Egypt. Now, for example, here's another statement in page 50. Some 1300 years later, the Holy Spirit, or 1,300 years or more than 1,300 years, the Holy Spirit, the Spirit of prophecy, announced through John the Baptist that the King of Kings was to appear. And though there was scoffing and jeering, there was no hardcore opposition to the prediction itself. Not until the fulfillment of John's prediction began to materialize. When Jesus began to work, then the conflict began, not so much through the Roman governors as through the church, the people who ironically had for centuries waited for his arrival and would spent millions of dollars in the sacrifices proclaiming the prophecies of him. The devil had so completely conquered them, the church, that they went to work for him with a willing hand and with no less zeal than Pharaoh and his host had manifested in the past. Now, brothers and sisters, the Shepherd's Lord says, all the prophets in the Old Testament, they prophesied, they predict the event. That is, the first manifestation of the Holy Spirit is predicting the event. What event? The arrival of the Messiah. And there is no such opposition in reality. The opposition at that time is very little, according to the voice of inspiration. But the great opposition came when God raised up John the Baptist, proclaiming the fulfillment of the event, no longer predicting. When John the Baptist baptized Jesus Christ in the river of Jordan and proclaimed that this is the Messiah, the predicted event is now being fulfilled. So there are two manifestations of the Holy Spirit. First, predicting the event, and then God raised up a prophet to announce and to proclaim that the predicted event is now being fulfilled. Now, brothers and sisters, I would like to go directly to our subject. B.T. Hotep, it is not Ellen G. White. I would like to read first General Conference Special, page 39. General Conference Special, page 39. The statement, it says, the judgment for the dead, furthermore, is not the message of the great and dreadful day. It does not even touch on the prophecies of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. So, all the prophets outside the Bible, beginning from Luther up to Ellen G. White, they have never given the light concerning the subject, the great and dreadful day of the Lord. Why? Because that message is committed by God only to antitypical Elijah. Now, this is the question. What manifestation of the Holy Spirit, the manifestation of inspiration, the manifestation of the Spirit of truth to B.T. Hotep, is it a manifestation of predicting the event or a manifestation to pronounce that the predicted event is now being fulfilled? If the manifestation of B.T. Hotep is, brothers and sisters, a manifestation of the announcement of the fulfillment of the predicted event, now the question, who is the first manifestation? Nothing! Brothers and sisters, all the inspired servants that had been raised by God after the Bible was completely written never predict the great and dreadful day of the Lord. Only B.T. Hotep. Now, I would like to read to you another reading on written by still in track number 16. Let us read page 56. Let me see if you could find this one. Had Miller been given light? Do you have the statement? Had Miller been given light to announce? Okay, thank you very much. So it says, had Miller been given light to announce both the termination of the 2300 days and also the judgment hour, he would have two messages to declare. But God never worked in that way. I would like to read again. Had Miller had been given light to announce both the termination of the 2300 days and also the judgment hour, he would have had two messages to declare. The former already accomplished and the latter not yet begun, thereby erroneously declaring both to be in one and the same period of time. Erroneously, how could William Miller be given two manifestations of the Holy Spirit, by which the other manifestation is the fulfillment of the event, while the fulfillment of the event is still future in the days of William Miller? Erroneously. Now, brothers and sisters, the only manifestation to B.T. Hotep concerning the great and dreadful day of the Lord is the predicting of the event, but he had never been announced the fulfillment of the event. He himself declared that the judgment of the living is still future. Now, I would like to read some passages here, brothers and sisters, in track number 3, page 43. Let's read the statement given by the shepherd's rod. It says, as the cleansing called for in the parables and in Malachi's prophecy have never taken place, the investigative judgment of the living is obviously then yet future. How about the great and dreadful day of the Lord? Answerer number 3, page 88. Let's read, brothers and sisters. Answerer number 3, page 88. And looking forward to the time of the great and dreadful day of the Lord, and looking forward to the time, you see, looking forward to the time of the great and dreadful day of the Lord, the time just ahead of us. So that statement indicates that the great and dreadful day of the Lord is still future in the days of B.T. Hotep. So B.T. Hotep is antitypical Elijah John the Baptist, by which, according to the shepherd's rod in the General Conference Special on page 10 and 11, I would like to read. General Conference Special, page 10 and 11. Important as it is, however, to keep in mind that the time in which to expect Elijah is before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. Who is the Elijah that is to come before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord? Antitypical Elijah John the Baptist. Now let me read to you the statement before the coming. So it says here, let us read the statement given by the shepherd's rod. One symbolic code, number 4, page 5. One symbolic code, number 4, page 5. John was a type of the Elijah. You see, John the Baptist is a type. Therefore, there must be antitypical John the Baptist. And John the Baptist is Elijah. So the antitypical John the Baptist is also Elijah. One symbolic code, number 4, page 5. John was a type of the Elijah that is to come before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. Who is the Elijah that is to come before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord? That is antitypical Elijah John the Baptist, by which the prophet himself boldly claimed that he was antitypical Elijah John the Baptist. 1 TG 36, page 4. Now let us read again the statement. General Conference Special, page 10 and 11. Important as it is, however, to keep in mind that the time in which to expect Elijah is before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. Yet just this knowledge alone is insufficient. The knowledge that there is Elijah, John the Baptist, is not sufficient. The knowledge that there is Elijah to come before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord, it is insufficient. Then it says, to know when and what the great and dreadful day itself is all important. Without this knowledge, who could possibly discern Elijah when he should come? There are two questions given in that paragraph. What is the great and dreadful day of the Lord? And when the great and dreadful day of the Lord? Indicating two Elijahs. Antitypical Elijah, John the Baptist. He proclaimed what is the great and dreadful day of the Lord. He predicted the event. He is the prophet, the first manifestation of the Holy Spirit to predict the event, the great and dreadful day of the Lord. But the second manifestation must be to proclaim when will be the great and dreadful day of the Lord. It is no longer a prediction, but it is an announcement of the fulfillment of that prediction predicted by antitypical Elijah John the Baptist, and his prediction is now being fulfilled. The announcement of that prediction, of the fulfillment of that prediction, recorded in the Shepherd's Rod publications. I think those who are honest and sincere will have no difficulty to understand. So the statement in Jezreel letter, I would like to read. Let us read Jezreel letter, number 2, page 2, is even reality with this statement. I would like to read. Jezreel letter, number 2, page 2. It says, now since the message of the judgment for the living is of far greater importance than the message of the judgment for the dead, it is but expected that the Bible will have more to say about the latter than the former. This is so because the judgment for the living has to do with the living themselves, with the message bearers, rather than with the dead. In importance, therefore, there is no comparison between the two. How will we get the message of the judgment for the living? The answer is clear to all. You see, the answer is clear to all. We will get it in the same way we got the one in 1844. Since it then came through inspiration and through God's own chosen instrumentality, it is certain that the additional message too is to come in the same way. That is, by inspiration, through God's own chosen agency. Indeed, truth is never revealed in any other way but by inspiration. So, the example given in the Shepherd's Rod is very plain. That in the judgment that pertains to the dead, there are two manifestations. There are two manifestations of inspiration. The prophet that predicted the event and the prophet that announced that prediction is being fulfilled. William Miller and then Sister White. So since there are only two inspired servants used by God in the judgment that pertains to the dead, there must also only two. The same way in the judgment for the living, there must only be two messengers. Antitypical Elijah John the Baptist, then God would raise up antitypical Elijah the Tishbite to announce the fulfillment of the event predicted by antitypical Elijah John the Baptist. So those Davidian movement, brothers and sisters, while it is still provisionary time, it is high time now. We should not fool our own selves or let others fooling us, brothers and sisters. I would like to read to you the statement in Journal Conference Special, page 4 and 5. The serious issue to which these questions give rise demands that we cease fooling ourselves or letting others make fools of us. Now, let me ask you a question, very simple question, brethren. When God raised up Elijah the Tishbite, ancient Elijah, the type, does Elijah at that time has headquarters? Please locate in the Bible, in the writings of Sister White and B.T. Hotter, that Elijah the Tishbite of old, when God raised him up, that, brothers and sisters, Elijah was residing a headquarters. Brothers and sisters, the types are worked out to expose the error and reveal the truth, so that the honest ones will shun the devil by embracing the facts and walking in the light. And that is one reason why B.T. Hotep could not be antitypical Elijah the Tishbite, because there was no such incident that antitypical Elijah the Tishbite established headquarters, but rather Elijah, the Tishbite of old, God raised him up because the headquarters in Israel is already under the jurisdiction of the false prophets and the priests of Baal. That is the truth, brothers and sisters. The reality that you should not close your eyes. The one residing, brothers and sisters, although in the type, there is only one Mount Carmel. But in the antitype, brothers and sisters, there are many false headquarters, brothers and sisters. Try to look at to the type and antitype if you could be able to see that Elijah, the Tishbite of old, has headquarters. He is living in a cave, in a mountain, traveling from place to place until God commanded him to go to Mount Carmel, brothers and sisters, to make a showdown with the prophets and priests of Baal. Although I will not focus my attention in that part, but let us go back again to our subject. The great and dreadful day of the Lord. Now, brothers and sisters, I would like to focus our attention first to the great day, not to the dreadful day. I remember the statement in 11 Symbolic Code, number 8. I would like to read that statement. Page 11. 11 Symbolic Code, number 8, page 11. This should be a great lesson. This should be a great object lesson to us. In carrying our message of Elijah, we should not be anxious for the execution of Ezekiel 9. So that is slaughtering. So we should not be anxious of the slaughtering, the execution of Ezekiel 9 in the church. But rather, we should be anxious for the souls of the people. So that is why I have said that let us focus our attention to the great day of the righteous, not the dreadful day for the wicked. Now, let us read again the statement given by the shepherd's rod. Let's read again in track number 15. But I would like to read this reading before I would like to read track number 15. Let us read the statement, brothers and sisters. On page 50, 55, and 56. That he gives meat in due season, present truth. So, let's read this one. Track number 16, page 55. It says, that he gives meat in due season, present truth. That therefore he does not feed his flock with old truth, for the old losses its spiritually nutritive value. And then it says that his desire and purpose are not to keep them blind too, and thus ignorant of the signs of the times, of the things to take place on the earth, as well as of those to take place in heaven, but to know what he would have us to do. For it is his purpose to make his church the light of the world, not to illuminate just the past and the future, but especially the present. Now, this year 2021, what is going on in the heavenly sanctuary? It is the most important, brothers and sisters, the present. Better what it says. Let us read 2TG. 2TG 37. It says, what a gloomy life this would be if there were no history. 2TG 37:11. 2TG 37:11. What a gloomy life this would be if there were no history. If there were no possible way of knowing the past. And still worse would it be if there were no prophecy. If there were no way of getting an idea what the future holds. But worst of all would it be if there were no light on the present truth. What is present truth? Christ's mediatorial work in the heavenly sanctuary. What is going on now in the heavenly sanctuary? Did we know? The question is, it says in selected messages, 122, it says, are we awake to the work that is going on in the heavenly sanctuary? 1SM 122. Even though all the messages that we are proclaiming is barricaded by thus saith the Lord, the opposition is great, not knowing that it is for their own good. Now, I would like to read again that statement written in track number 16. And hoping that of all the Davidian, it is the Bayesian movement that will listen to this message, being the one who published this reading material. Track number 16, page 51 or 50. It is manifestly clear, let us read. It is manifestly clear, therefore, from Enoch to the apostles, that whereas on the one hand, the spirit of prophecy wrote out his invariable dual work, Do not forget that. Dual work. That is why those who believe the shepherd's rod, they will not be misled with these false claims. Brothers and sisters, the Davidian who claimed that after Bitihotep, they claimed more than one inspired servant, it cannot be of God because it was already predicted beforehand that the last prophet of all the prophets is antitypical Elijah the Tishbite. The prophet that will follow after Bitihotep. And there will be no other. Because there are only two manifestations of the Spirit. And it is also illustrated in the judgment that pertains to the dead. There are only two. William Miller and Ellen G. White. Now, brothers and sisters, I would like to read again this reading. In tract number 16. It is manifestly clear, therefore, from Enoch to the apostles, that whereas on the one hand, the spirit of prophecy wrote out his invariable dual work, first prophesying of the event, then later fulfilling it. The devil did not, on the other hand, do much by comparison to prevent or to fight off the prophecies of the event. So the opposition in the time when God raised up the prophet to predict the event, the opposition is not so hard because there is no shepherd's rod believer who oppose the prediction of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. But unlike at the time when God would raise up antitypical Elijah the Tishbite, what is the prediction? Brothers and sisters, according to the General Conference Special, it says here, on page 6 and 7, General Conference Special pages 6 and 7, for this very reason, we must remember that when the last prophet comes, he will have the greatest opposition to meet. That is why the opposition only strengthens our faith because they were fulfilling the event. For this very reason, we must remember that when the last prophet comes, he will have the greatest opposition to meet. For Satan well knows that if he loses now, he loses forever. What makes Elijah's work? You see, the last prophet mentioned here is antitypical Elijah the Tishbite. What makes Elijah's work especially hard is that Christendom has long been drilled in the idea that no prophet is to come. This idea is prevalent among the media. That there is no necessity for one, that it has enough revealed truth to carry it inside the pearly gates. It is therefore only to be expected that the predicted Elijah will be denounced as false prophet, perhaps even as the Antichrist offshoot or whatnot. General Conference Special, page 6 and page 7. Now let's go back again to the reading in tract number 16, page 50 and 51. It is manifestly clear, therefore, from Enoch to the apostles, that whereas on the one hand, the spirit of prophecy wrote out his invariable dual work, first prophesying of the event. For example, all the prophets in the Old Testament, that is the first manifestation of the Spirit prophesying the event. What event? The arrival of the Messiah. But John the Baptist is the last prophet in the Old Testament because that is already the second manifestation of the Spirit. The last prophet is the second manifestation, no longer predicting the event, but God raised him up to announce the fulfillment of the predicted event, that the Messiah that they were waiting is already come. Now let us continue reading. It says, first prophesying of the event, then later fulfilling it. The devil did not, on the other hand, do much by comparison to prevent or to fight of the prophecies of the event. The devils make no effort to fight, brothers and sisters, that there is no, by saying there is no Messiah to come. No, the devil did not fight that. But according to this reading, it says, do much by comparison to prevent or to fight off the prophecies of the event, but spared no effort to defeat their fulfillment. You see, brothers and sisters, it says, thus it is clearly seen that from the beginning there has been first a work of prophesying an event, then following work fulfilling the event prophesied, and that whereas the opposition did not markedly manifest itself against the spirit prophecy work of proclaiming the predictions, it worked savagely in the effort to defeat their fulfillment. And this is what happening now. Bitihotep predicted the final day of atonement. He is the prophet who predicted the final day of atonement. I would like to read to you. But when God raised up antitypical Elijah the Tishbite to proclaim, especially to those who believe the shepherd's rod, that predicted event prophesied by Bitihotep, the fulfillment of that event is now taking place this very year, and we are about to enter that blotting out of names. And they are trying to confuse the people, saying that March 27, 2021, there will be something happen to the earth. We never teach, brothers and sisters. There is no material side. At that time, the material side would be on September 27, 2021, up to September 22, 2022. March 27, 2021, that is only the first aspect of the judgment. Now, I would like to read to you so that you could understand. Bitihotep is the prophet raised by God to predict the great and dreadful day of the Lord, but that is pointing to the blotting out of names in the heavenly sanctuary. So, that is the first manifestation of inspiration, the first manifestation of the Spirit of God, because the manifestation of the Spirit of God is dual, and there is no prophet that God bestowed unto him the true manifestation of the Spirit, according to the voice of inspiration. And you cannot cite any example, brothers and sisters, that there is a prophet in the Bible that God manifested unto him the two manifestations. And to repeat again, what is the last message? The great and dreadful day of the Lord, the judgment of the living. I will no longer read. There are many passages in the Shepherd's Rod that is the last message. The General Conference Special, page 39 and 40. It says that, so the more we consider the subject, the more obvious it becomes, brothers and sisters, that the last message is the harvest that pertains to the living. And no one could explain it. It is Elijah who will give explanation on that subject. And since the Shepherd's Rod declared that Ellen G. White has no knowledge concerning the great and dreadful day of the Lord, then Bitihotep must be the first manifestation of the Holy Spirit. What is the first manifestation? To predict the event. What is the second manifestation? An announcement that predicted event is actually taking place. The fulfillment of that predicted event. Now, I would like to read the predicted event predicted by Bitihotep. Track number 15, it says here. Track number 15, 28 and 29. In the typical atonement, everyone's destiny among the professed people of God was forever fixed. Those who complied with the demands of the law were left to live, and those who did not were cut off from among the people. Thus, it must also be in the antitypical atonement. Then it says, so in the great day of final atonement and investigative judgment, the judgment of the first two sittings, the time to separate the tares from the wheat, the bad fish from the good, from among both the dead and the living. So that is a prediction. The final day of atonement that pertains to the dead, and the final day of atonement that pertains to the living. Now, think it thoroughly. Would you think God would not raise up the second manifestation of the Spirit? Remember, God has a uniform dealing. There is always two manifestations. And that is why, look at this statement. Track number 16. Look at this statement given in this reading material. On page 48. Inspiration's way of promoting truth and the people's way of accepting it. It says, inspiration way of promoting truth and the people's way of accepting it. It says, it is surprising, even alarming, how little thought has been given to the method which inspiration has ever employed in promoting truth and to the people's way of responding it. Now, I would like to go to the portion. It says, failure to do so, resulting in failure to recognize heaven's plea as the voice of the Spirit of God, is to commit the sin against the Holy Ghost, the sin unpardonable. Then it says, how crucial then that we possess ourselves of a saving knowledge of this imperative prerequisite of our salvation. You see, brothers and sisters? So that is the method of God. Two manifestation of the Spirit of God. If we will study the book of Joel, the latter rain is divided into two. The latter rain of truth. Pre-Pentecostal truth and the Pentecostal truth. The truth that had been bestowed by God to Bitihotep is the pre-Pentecostal truth, but the truth in the 11th hour is the Pentecostal truth. Although both truths are already in the Shepherd's Rod publications. But the Pentecostal truth, even though B.T. Hotep already written the Pentecostal truth in his publications, but the understanding of it was not given by God to him. The same with Daniel. The same with John the Revelator. In the Great Controversy 344, even the prophets himself, who had been favored with God with the special illumination of the Spirit, did not fully comprehend the true import of the message that had been committed unto them. Now, according to tract number 15, 28, and 29, B.T. Hotep predicted the event. Of course, B.T. Hotep did not predict the event of the commencement of the Day of Atonement to the dead because it was already in the past, October 22, 1844. B.T. Hotep predicted the two events. The last Day of Atonement that pertains to the dead and the last Day of Atonement that pertains to the living. Is it blotting out of sins? No. Let us read again. It is blotting out of names. Tract number 15 on page 29. So in the great day of final atonement, not the first atonement, not the second atonement, but the final, the last day of atonement. So in the great day of final atonement, an investigative judgment, the judgment of the first two sittings, the time to separate the tares from the wheat, the bad fish from the good, from among both the dead and the living. What does it mean to separate the tares? To blot out the names of the wicked. And here's another prediction given by B.T. Hotep. Tract number 3, pages 73 and page 74. Being the Day of Atonement in type for both the dead and the living, this service of the earthly tabernacle therefore projects the Day of Atonement in its antitype, the cleansing of the sanctuary in heaven from the unworthy names in the books and the cleansing of the church on earth from its unconverted and unstable members, thus bringing the time of clean books, clean church, and clean people. But that is the prediction, the first manifestation of the Holy Spirit. B.T. Hotep predicting the final Day of Atonement, by which after that final Day of Atonement, bringing the time, clean books, all the names of the wicked are completely blotted out. There are many passages in the Shepherd's Rod that B.T. Hotep predicted that event. Now, the manifestation of the Spirit, the last manifestation, is no longer to predict the event because that is the first manifestation, predicting the event, the cleansing of the sanctuary in the heavenly sanctuary, the final Day of Atonement, by which at that time, after that blotting out of names, the books will be completely cleansed. Although, in reality, that is pertaining to the last book because there are 7 different books. The book, that is why you can read in tract number 3, page 7, Lamb's books, because it is 7 divisions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, then 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this is the first seal, second seal, third seal, fourth seal, fifth seal, sixth seal, then seventh seal. So the first book to be cleansed is the first seal. Then after this, second seal, then third seal, then fourth seal, then fifth seal, then sixth seal, then seventh seal. The seventh seal is only pointing to the worshippers, as stated in Revelation 11, verse 1 and 2. Now, brothers and sisters, what the statement given by the Shepherd's Rod concerning the seventh seal? 2SR page 220. 2SR page 220. Thus we conclude, so it's already a conclusion. Thus we conclude that when the seal is opened, pointing to the seventh seal. Thus we conclude that when the seal is opened and the judgment for the living begins, we must know it. It is a prediction. It says the Day of Atonement in its type proves the same, for the Israelites were well informed of the event, their duty, and the consequence. I will continually pray to our Almighty God because I love all the obedience. And it is my prayer that, if possible, there is not even one soul, Shepherd's Rod believer, by which their names will be blotted out. And I'm trying my best that I could explain to them clearly, in spite of such great opposition. Brothers and sisters, there is no investigation at all. They immediately speak evil. When we say, this coming March 27, 2021, that is the last and the final Day of Atonement. In Bible calendar, that is October 10, 2022. And then they say, we will be waiting for March 27, 2021. If nothing happened to this earth, it's if they were threatening us. We will not spare any one of you. What you will do unto us? Look at the antediluvian world. When the ark is closed, did the rain immediately poured out? No. So even though the ark is already closed, they continually ridicule and mock Noah. And according to the great controversy, the situation is the same. I would like to read to you the great controversy. Great controversy 490. It says, the righteous and the wicked will still be living upon the earth in their mortal state. Men will be planting and building, eating and drinking, all unconscious that the final irrevocable decision has been pronounced in the sanctuary above. You want to be among these people that unconscious to the fact that the irrevocable decision has already pronounced in the sanctuary above? I remember, brethren, the statement in the Great Controversy 430. I would like to read this statement. It says, the condition of the unbelieving Jews illustrates the condition of the careless and unbelieving among professed Christians who are willingly ignorant of the work of our merciful high priest. Then everybody is fighting the message. No one will know. Nobody will know. If that is the case, brothers and sisters, then how could we be able to prepare? The type, according to the shepherd's rod, all the people in Israel are well informed. There is a message of the trumpet. Now, I would like to read again the statement. The condition of the unbelieving Jews illustrates the condition of the careless and unbelieving among professed Christians who are willingly ignorant. You see, willingly ignorant. Because if you will read Bible commentary, it says 6 BC 1056. 6 BC 1056. No excuse for willful ignorance. It says, I wot that through ignorance you did it, said Peter. But this ignorance did not excuse the action, for they had had great light granted unto them. The statement is made that had they known that he was the Prince of Life, he would not have crucified him. But why did they not know? This is the question. But why did they not know? Because they choose not to know. Because they choose not to know. They had no interest to search and study, and their ignorance proved their eternal ruin. They choose not to know. Brothers and sisters, would you think God or the heavenly universe is happy of what you are doing now? Instead of studying, you are speaking evil to the message. It's very saddening, brothers and sisters. It says here, in the typical service, when the high priest entered the most holy place, all Israel were required to gather about the sanctuary, and in the most solemn manner, humble their souls before God, that they might receive the pardon of their sins, and not be cut off from the congregation. How much more essential in this antitypical day of atonement that we understand the work of our high priest and know what duties are required of us. Now let's go back to the great controversy 490 and 491. It says, all unconscious that the final irrevocable decision has been pronounced in the sanctuary above. When would that be? That is on the Day of Atonement, according to the shepherd's rod. Track number 15, page 80, page 28. On the Day of Atonement, the destiny will be forever fixed. That is the irrevocable decision. Now it says, before the flood, after Noah entered the ark, God shut him in and shut the ungodly out. But for 7 days, the people, knowing not their doom was fixed, continued their careless, pleasure-loving life and mocked the warnings of impending judgment. So says the Savior, shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. Matthew 24 verse 39. Silently unnoticed, as the midnight thief will come the decisive hour which marks the fixing of every man's destiny, the final withdrawal of mercy offered to guilty men. Watch ye therefore, lest coming suddenly he find you sleeping. Mark 13:35 and 36. Perilous is the condition of those who, growing weary of their watch, turn to the attractions of the world, while the man of business is absorbed in the pursuit of gain, while the pleasure lover is seeking indulgence, while the daughter of fashion is arranging her adornments. It may be in that hour the judge of all the earth will pronounce the sentence, thou art weighed in the balances and art found wanting. And that is the very message given in White House Recruiter, page 33. 32 or page 32, it says, "And what more damaging darkness could he seek to keep them in than in ignorance of that which God would have them to know?" What is heavenly summons? That is a message to let every candidates to be among the living saints to know that their cases in the heavenly sanctuary is being weighed. Now let us read White House Recruiter, page 32. "And what more damaging darkness could he seek to keep them in than in ignorance of that which God would have them to know, while their judgment is pending, while they are being weighed in the balances of the sanctuary? None, absolutely none. The most damaging darkness. Why? Because there will be no more day of atonement to follow. The statement in tract number 3, page 54, for when a person's judgment is pending and he is unaware of the fact, he cannot stand when his case will be investigated. So that statement, brethren, in 2 TG 12:30, to the people who must know that their cases are on trial, that is the living saints. They need to know that their cases are on trial. We need to know. B.T. Hotep predicted the event, but the time will come that the spirit of prophecy in the church will be the one to proclaim that the event has actually taking place. That is the last manifestation of the Spirit of Truth. 2 TG 12:29, it says, "John truly paid it as a prophecy. But when it actually takes place, then God's agency on earth, the spirit of prophecy in the church, is to proclaim that the event has actually taken place, that the judgment for the living is now in progress." Brethren, the time is so short. The remaining days getting shorter and shorter every day. Why is it that my effort now is to prove to you that there must be manifestation of the Spirit of truth, not to predict the event, but to announce of the fulfillment of the predicted event? Because of our attitude. If the inquiry would be, how do you know that the last and final day of atonement, March 27, 2021, that March 27, 2021 is the last and the final day of atonement, then we will be focusing to that issue. But we focus to the portion just to prove to you that there must be manifestation of the Spirit of God. There must be manifestation of the Spirit of truth. The last manifestation of inspiration, no longer to predict the event, but rather to announce that the predicted event is now being fulfilled. In reality, the only thing that we need today is faith. I remember the statement in tract number 6, page 79. I would like to, it says, the conclusion in the fullness of light pervading these pages, the reader should see as in noonday brightness, that the ever-present spirit of prophecy alone. You see, the ever-present spirit of prophecy, ever-present spirit of prophecy alone is able to cope with the confusion in the world today, resulting from the many winds of doctrine. Behold, says the word, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. To him shalt thou hearken. To him shalt thou hearken. And in the other statement in General Conference Special on page 9, it says, finally, for what other purpose could any right-thinking minds suppose the Lord would send his prophet, if not for them to give ear to him, that they might thereby survive the great and dreadful day of the Lord? For what else, indeed, could the Lord have made a record of prophecy and promise of his last day prophet? Ponder this, brethren, think it through. Give ear to him. I remember the statement in the old symbolic code. One symbolic code number 4, page 2. One symbolic code number 4, page 2. At which time did God ever excuse anyone for not believing his prophets? One symbolic code number 4, page 2. At which time did God ever excuse anyone for not believing his prophets? Believe his prophets, so shall ye prosper, said the Lord. 2 Chronicles 20, verse 20. Let God's people take notice. Has our church come to such a place where she can say, it matters not whether the members believe their prophet or not, and yet have them think that their salvation is secured while sinning against the Holy Ghost, committing the unpardonable sin? One symbolic code, number 4, on page 2. It points out only to God's prophets. Actually, the same with the principle that no one is lost of believing a false doctrine. But everyone is lost because of rejecting present truth. B.T. Hotep says, the greatest danger of the people is not listening to error. It says here in track number 3, page 10 and 11, consequently, the greatest danger of the people has not been their listening to error, but rather their rejecting present truth. This present truth today that we are proclaiming is life and death matter. It is a life and death matter, brothers and sisters. Our cases in the heavenly sanctuary, the last generation of men, the congregation of the living, are now being weighed in the balances in the heavenly sanctuary. And think it thoroughly, brothers and sisters, if we'll be fulfilling the prophecy that while Christ's mediatorial work is about finished in the heavenly sanctuary, and we the people, according to the vision of Sister White. And I would like to read that reading. And track number 1. It says here, in track number 1 on page 24. Track number 1, page 24. These solemn words, may it lay well to heart. I may none let the enemy beguile them with good words and fair speeches. On this life and death matter, fix in your mind the fact that Christ rising up from His mediatorial work, so it points out to the final day of atonement in the holy place, cannot be after probation has closed. For note carefully, He is to rise up during the unfolding of truth. When Jesus Christ will rise up His mediatorial work in the most holy place, that is general close of provision, and there is no more unfolding of truth at that time concerning the plan of redemption. And it says, fix in your mind the fact that Christ rising up from His mediatorial work cannot be after probation has closed. For note carefully, He is to rise up during the unfolding of truth. Let it take heed that he fall not to criticize the message or the messengers, but rather that he sigh and cry as the Lord bids for all the abominations that be done in the midst the church, lest he be found on the wrong side, reigns with the evildoers, and thus doomed to fall under the angels' slaughter weapons. Track number 1, page 24. But many disobedient, criticizing the message, even though they themselves do not understand what really the message is. March 27, 2021. That is the first aspect of the judgment, only bookwork. I would like to read again the statement in answerer number 5, page 30. It says, this is the first aspect of the judgment. Now, I would like to read the entire paragraph so that we could understand. According to Jesus' parable, this work takes place in the time of harvest, the end of the world. Matthew 13, verse 30 and 40. And as the congregation of the dead, as well as the congregation of the living, you see, congregation of the dead and congregation of the living, that is pointing to the books in the heavenly sanctuary. And as the congregation of the dead, as well as the congregation of the living, are commingled with the good and the bad, the judgment takes place among both, first among the dead, then among the living. In the judgment, the decision is made as to who are worthy of eternal life and who of eternal death, who are to come up in the first resurrection, and who in the second also, who are to be translated when Jesus comes, and who are to perish at the brightness of His coming. Then it says, this is the first aspect of the judgment, but very important. This is the very first aspect of the judgment, and being only a bookwork, a work that does not disturb either the dead in the graves or the living in the church. It takes place in heaven. There is no material side. On March 27, 2021, there is no material side as yet, but the fact, the same as in the days of Noah, when the ark is closed, the material side did not immediately appear. But after the 7 days, when the rain began to pour out, everything ceased to be funny. But I would like to say that after the 144,000 will be completely sealed, when? September 27, 2021. On September 27, 2021, the entire 144,000 living saints are completely protected. Seal of protection. Then after that, onwards, the material side will begin to appear. But the first aspect of the judgment, Being only a bookwork, it does not disturb either the dead in the graves or the living in the church. And you can still, at that time, continually mock, deride us, speak evil against us. You can still do it because the material side at that time did not as yet appear. But the decision in the heavenly sanctuary is already finished. The irrevocable decision is already pronounced. You could no longer alter the situation. But we are talking the judgment in the house of God. Not yet to the great multitude. Because according to the great controversy, the judgment must begin at the house of God. But the judgment to the wicked world takes place at a latter period. The great controversy page, let me see, I think 480. It says, so in the great day of final atonement and investigative judgment, the only cases considered are those of the professed people of God. Only pointing to the 12 tribes. The judgment of the wicked is a distinct and separate work and takes place at a later period. Judgment must begin at the house of God. And if it first begin at us, what shall the end be of them that obey not the gospel? 1 Peter 4:17. So what irrevocable decision to be pronounced in March 27, 2021, only to the professed people of God, the 12 tribes, spiritual Israel, not to the world, because the judgment of the second fruits is a distinct and separate work. And that is why this message is proclaimed. How much more to Shepherd's Rod believers? Brothers and sisters, this message is not against you, although you are speaking evil against it. But I would like to read this reading in 2SR 258. 2SR 258. My brethren, these words are not against you. This message is not against the Gideon. Is it against the Gideon? Just to inform them that our cases are being weighed in the balances in the heavenly sanctuary? Would you think this work is the work of the devil? To warn the people so that they could prepare on that great day final atonement? Is that the work of the devil? To prepare the people? Think it thoroughly. My brethren, 2SR 258. My brethren, these words are not against you, for it is God speaking through His word of truth to save you from the bottomless pit. Will you not let Him work for you and for His people? Will you not be His sheep? 2SR page 258. Let me see if I could find that reading. Can you project that statement? I am inclined to believe. Let's read that statement. Because that is pointing to the Day of Atonement. So let us project that whole paragraph. So it says, I am inclined to believe that those who watch for the day and hour will understood both before they arrive. Paul says, Hebrews 10 verse 25, exhorting one another, and so much the more as ye see the day approaching, which seems to imply that it may be seen before it actually arrives. Our Lord says in Revelation 3 verse 3, if therefore thou shalt not watch, I will come on you as a thief, and thou shalt not know what hour I will come upon thee. Which implies that if we will watch, we shall know what hour. It appears to me probable that the blowing of the trumpets in the 7th month, in the first day of the month, Leviticus 23:24, is to be understood as a type of something that is to occur on that day, which will be a signal to those who are watching to show them that the 7th month has commenced. It may be the literal sounding of the 7th trumpet. If not that, something that God's people who are watching will understand and then know for certainty when the 10th day is. Psalms 81 verse 3. Blow up the trumpet in the new moon, the first day of the 7th month, in the time appointed on our solemn feast day. I think that blowing of trumpets means something that we shall very soon understand. The Lord help us to stand on our watchtower. So, brothers and sisters, there are ample evidences in abundance of proofs that before that last and final day of atonement, God will inform first His people. And since that last and final day of atonement is for all the living saints, therefore, the proclamation must be to the time when the living saints are in existence and at the time when their cases in the heavenly sanctuary are being weighed. Because it is inscribed in present tense, the judgment is come. I remember this reading in track number 16. Let me read to you. It says on page 55. Let it be emphasized, you see? Let it be emphasized that the first angel's message does not say, fear God and give glory to Him, for the hour of His judgment shall come, but rather that the hour of His judgment is come. This scripture clearly shows that the truth of the judgment had to be declared not before, but the exact time of the judgment convened. Also that His truth is in all respects meet in due season, given neither too soon nor too late. And that while we are taught truth, we are at the same time made to realize concerning God's visiting His people to make known to them the time to which they have come. You see, brothers and sisters, it is inscribed in present tense. And that is why B.T. Hotep himself declared clearly in 1SR 156 and 157. It says, therefore, God did not intend to make the judgment known up until after the hour had come. For this reason, inspiration inscribed the occurrence in present tense is come, in order to be grammatically correct. So B.T. Hotep himself, his testimony, it says that they did not understood clearly what the nature of the event. I would like to read to you. Answerer number 1 on page 95. It says, Answerer number 1, page 95. So while it was not exactly understood beforehand what the nature of the event would be, yet when the fullness of the time came, and no other event occurred but this one, it was thereby identified as the one predicted in Ezekiel 4 in connection with the end of the 430 prophetic years when the scroll was to unroll another turn. Although 430 years prophecy is still a little bit deep subject, but the only portion that I would like to emphasize in that reading is that it was not exactly understood by B.T. Hotep. Why? Because God has no intention to reveal the entire truth concerning the judgment that pertains to the living at the time when the judgment for the living did not as yet commence, because it is inscribed in present tense. Then the revelation would be grammatically incorrect. So the only manifestation of inspiration to B.T. Hotep is to predict the event, but never announce the fulfillment of that predicted event, because he died before the event comes. And secondly, there is no example in the Bible or outside the Bible that God raised up a prophet by which the two manifestations of the Spirit is fulfilled in one prophet. How could it be? He predict the event and then he will announce the fulfillment of the event. All the fulfillment of the event is inscribed in present tense. Then how could he announce the fulfillment of the event? It would be grammatically incorrect and out of God's order, God's method of revealing the truth. So we will continue this subject on our next special episode, and hoping that this portion is enough, brothers and sisters, to all comprehending minds to understand it clearly that there are only two prophets ever predicted in the judgment that pertains to the living. And that is Elijah. Elijah John the Baptist and Elijah the Tishbite. And secondly, that there are only two manifestations of the Spirit. The first manifestation, Elijah John the Baptist, predicting the event. The last manifestation, antitypical Elijah the Tishbite, announcing the fulfillment of the predicted event. Hoping that God would help us. Brothers and sisters, I love you, brethren, all Shepherd's Rod believers, as well as all Sabbath keepers throughout the whole world, as well as all Sunday keepers, as well as all the non-Christian world. We love all humanity. We need to help each other to obtain salvation. Thank you very much for listening and viewing this program. May the good Lord bless you and have a beautiful, wonderful evening.